The fact that you said that women at the age of 9 can reach puberty and then are ready to consummate is bullshit. You're completely ignoring all of the scientific research on actual brain development. And you're just looking, oh, so if she can bleed, we can breed? Is that it? Is that your Islamic saying? Where does it say that in the Quran? You freak. 6. Perhaps Allah ordered him to marry Aisha as a test for us to show if we will be defeated apologetics in front of Western criticism or not. Perhaps Allah facilitated the rape of a child so that we brave Muslims can stand up for what's right. Raping kids. Yeah. Woohoo. All you're demonstrating right now is that your Allah is apparently a scum. Why would he order an adult man to rape a child just so what? You Muslims can now be tested to see if you're gonna really defend a pedophile or not? Allah gives his toughest battles to the strongest child rape defenders. Next subject, I am back to being called an Islamophobe on Twitter, which is basically means that I am being correct and a bunch of fuckheads are mad again. This time a bunch of pro-child rapists are actually mad at me again. This sucks. Let me go through basically this recent little drama, this little conflict here on Twitter, and I'll just kind of explain what happened, okay? So this guy, Faris al-Hamadi? Hamadi? I don't know how to say his name quite right, but whatever. Obviously seems to be an Islamic scholar, advisor on Islamic info. And so he tweets out this big, long, 7-point tweet paragraph thingy about how maybe actually it was okay that Muhammad, at the age of what, 40 or 50, fucked a 9-year-old girl. That's his little argument here. Hey, maybe it wasn't actually that bad, Now keep in mind, the minute you've stepped into maybe child rape is actually okay because my imaginary Sky Daddy thinks so, then you've already kind of lost your mind. I don't know how you're even human. You should probably be sterilized at the minimum, right? So, okay, fine. But this is just the worst argument. If you're going to actually try and defend something that heinous, then at least come prepared with some fucking crazy ass argument, okay? At least get some people stunned. Don't drop some dumb shit like this. So we're going to basically just read through this and then I'll read through my response, but you'll probably hear my response as I'm reading through this anyway because I can't help myself but respond. So Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, was 6 years old when she got married to the Prophet, and the marriage was consummated when she was 9. This matter is by consensus undisputed among the companions and the scholars after them. Okay, so he doesn't even deny it at all. He's saying this is the case. It is undisputed. He had sex with a 9-year-old. Here are things to consider. Okay, drum roll, please. What is going to make child rape actually okay? Who's ready for this fucking plot twist? Number 1, it was a norm back then, and in many civilizations, even Western ones. Slavery was the norm at one point. Is slavery okay, buddy? Was it okay at the time? No? Then shut the fuck up, you degenerate. Number 2, women at the age of 9 can reach puberty, which scientifically means they are ready to consummate. So 1, it's not just about reaching puberty, it's also about mental and cognitive ability to adequately consent to something like sex with an adult man and then possibly child rearing. Plus, a 9-year-old getting pregnant and then giving birth would be incredibly risky and dangerous, possibly life-threatening for that 9-year-old child. A 9-year-old girl's body is not set up to give birth to children yet. The fact that you said that women at the age of 9 can reach puberty and then are ready to consummate is bullshit. You're completely ignoring all of the scientific research on actual brain development. And you're just looking, oh, so if she can bleed, we can breed? Is that it? Is that your fucking Islamic saying? Where does it say that in the Quran? You freak. Number 3, the Prophet had many enemies at his time and after. None raised this matter against him. 1, who cares? 2, you just said it was the norm back then. So wait, it was the norm back then. Hey, and none of his enemies ever brought it up. I thought it was the norm back then. They probably didn't see it as a bad thing. That's like, hey, how come none of George Washington's enemies ever mentioned he had slaves, huh? Because having slaves was just like the norm back then, yeah. Like, people didn't see it as like a contentious thing worth insulting others over. So that's a really stupid thing to say. And embarrassing because he literally debunked his own point 2 points ago. Number 4, your 21st century mind is comparing 9-year-olds from 1,444 years ago with today's 9-year-olds. Yeah? My 21st century mind, which is a mind that actually has knowledge and education of certain scientific literature explaining the cognitive development of younger people and the way in which having sex with a 9-year-old, raping a child, and then forcing her to give birth would be incredibly traumatic for her and lead to a net just negative for her overall quality of life. So my 21st century mind is simply a more knowledgeable mind, able to look at something that happened a long time ago and say, hey, not only would you be able to tell it was wrong then because she was a fucking child, but now my 21st century mind has all this education that can say, hey, look, way back then when that happened, that was bad because you were coercive. They didn't have the cognitive ability to consent. It could have risked her life, etc., etc., etc. So how is that an argument against anything? Because people were stupid back then, it makes it okay? I mean, you're stupid still. It doesn't make it okay. Number 5, all his other wives were either divorcees or widows, and some were older than him. Guys, guess what? Did you know that Jeffrey Epstein also had sex with adult women? What's the big deal? I mean, yeah, he raped a couple kids, but he also had sex with a lot of adult women. This argument would never hold up in any context ever. This is why this person should be fucking sterilized. Jesus Christ. What a dumb argument. You can make this argument for Epstein. It doesn't negate raping a child. I don't care if you have sex with adult women your entire life and then rape one child the day before you die. You are a child rapist now. Fuck you. 6, perhaps Allah ordered him to marry Aisha as a test for us to show if we will be defeated apologetics in front of Western criticism or not. Perhaps Allah facilitated the rape of a child so that we brave Muslims can stand up for what's right. Raping kids. Yeah. Woohoo. All you're demonstrating right now is that your Allah is apparently a scumfuck. Why would he order an adult man to rape a child just so what? You Muslims can now be tested to see if you're gonna really defend a pedophile or not? Like, what the fuck are you even saying right now? Allah gives his toughest battles to the strongest child rape defenders. Number 7, does Islam make it permissible to marry 9-year-olds? There is nothing mentioned in the Quran about the legal or about the age of marriage. It all goes back to norms, traditions, and what is beneficial. So short answer, no, it doesn't, because 9-year-olds today are definitely not prepared for marriage. I see 30-year-olds not eligible for marriage today. Sad reality. Okay, this is a massive pivot, basically, because a 30-year-old not being eligible for marriage would be for very different reasons than if a 9-year-old was not ready for marriage. So that's a really dumb argument to make. Also, whether or not the Quran makes it permissible or not, honestly, is kind of irrelevant, because here you are, modern day Muzzy, up here, fucking defending child rape. So whether or not it says it's permissible or it's not permissible, you're arguing that at one point it kind of was permissible because of your dumb fuck God. Like, fuck you, dude. You are such a scum fuck for getting up here and actually thinking these are decent arguments to defend the rape of a child. And I know that some people are going to be mad at me or say that I'm going too far by saying Muzzy or whatever. I don't give a shit, okay? Stop. Don't defend child rape. So then I responded, this is the most embarrassing attempt to defend a blatant act of child abuse at the hands of some scumbag Prophet Muhammad, parentheses, death be upon him. Allow me to easily dismantle every single stupid fucking thing you said. 1, I don't care if it was the norm. Slavery was the norm also. Doesn't make it right. Dumb fuck point. 2, a period does not mean the girl is mentally able to consent to sex. Plus, at the age of 9 or 10, the girl would face serious life-threatening risks if she were to give birth. 3, even if his enemies didn't mention it, it's irrelevant. Plus, you just said it was a common thing at the time. So, his enemies probably didn't see it as something worth attacking him over. You debunked your own argument here, dipshit. Number 4, my current mind, with current scientific understanding of how brains develop and the long-lasting trauma of child abuse, is seeing something from long ago as also being bad, because we have the education to understand this even better nowadays. 5, Epstein also had sex with adults. It doesn't negate him raping kids. This is such a stupid point, you should sterilize yourself. 6, why would Allah order Muhammad, death be upon him, to abuse an immature child and risk her life if she were to give birth? Allah sounds like a scumfuck. Newsflash, he is. Number 7, whether or not Islam makes child rape permissible is irrelevant, because here you are, a fucking cult member, defending child abuse because Muh Allah. In short, child rape is wrong regardless of your irrelevant, irrational, ancient fairy book. Now fuck off. We got 20 quote tweets here to look at. Reminder that Hunter Avalone is a groomer PDF file who thinks children can consent to sex change. He's also suicidal and suffers from depression. Basically your average estrogen-filled soy boy. One, being a pedophile or a groomer has nothing to do with whether or not a child with parental consent and with the consent of a doctor and with the consent of a therapist, can consent to a medical procedure, which is completely different than like engaging in sexual activity. Second of all, you're depressed, so you're wrong, huh? Okay, wow. Everyone report this Islamophobic soy boy. This infidel suffers from depression and takes his anger out on Islam. So again, the same guy, you're depressed, so you're wrong. I love that one. Told y'all liberals are enemies of Muslims. Oh, I love that. That is the best. That is the most mask-off moment ever. Liberals are against Muslims. Why? Because liberals are against child rape. That's what he just said. He didn't say that many words, but that is what he just said. I told you liberals are against Muslims. No, we're against child rape. And if you think being against child rape is being against Muslims, then maybe that's a problem with you, you sick degenerate. You're telling on yourself right now. Under no circumstance should we support them or their godless ideologies. Damn, then how come my godless ideology can tell me it's bad to rape kids and yours can't? Oof. Bathsheba was 6 when David spied on her taking a bath. Really? Regardless if this is true or not, how is saying, hey look, other ancient religious texts also have child rape in them? How is that a defense for your point? Okay. Also, keep in mind, though, there's a big difference here, okay? If Bathsheba was 6 when David spied on her, that's fucked up. But guess what? David is not the prophet of God Almighty. Mary was 11 when impregnated by God. Okay, well, maybe God then. That's a little yikesy. But none of you write on that. Oh, well, I would write on that. I'd say that's pretty creepy. Also, it wasn't abuse. If it was abuse, then Aisha would have shown some of the symptoms. What? Educational difficulties? Low self-esteem? So that is clearly wrong. Emotional argument again. What? So unless there's some documentation of her suffering from an actual, like, trauma because of her being raped as a child, then it wasn't abuse? Can I please talk to this guy? Please. I just want to ask him a really simple question. It's an extremely simple question. Here it is, okay? It's exactly this analogy, and it would force him to realize how stupid he is. Here's the question, okay? There's a girl, she's blackout drunk, she's unconscious. Passed out drunk at a party, okay? She is literally unconscious, cannot hear anything, see anything, feel anything, remember anything, or experience anything. You have sex with that person. The next day, she wakes up. She has no recollection. She has suffered no physical damage. She has no knowledge that it even occurred, so therefore she doesn't really suffer any kind of trauma from it. Is it not rape? Was it not abuse? The risk of harm is obviously pretty crucial there, but if there is not a harm outcome, it does not negate the moral wrong you took initially, in this case by 1, taking the risk, and 2, taking away somebody else's autonomy and violating their rights. Would that be rape? Yeah, it would be, right? So it almost is like it's not actually just about whether or not they suffer bad outcomes or not. What a fucking loser.
I want to address that actually the exact age of Aisha isn't known.
Is the argument that it's
The
just
prophet's
not
wife.
known, or that it is known and actually
No.
she wasn't 9?
She could have been anywhere from 9 to 16.
Okay, so I understand the argument about the Muhammad thing. I understand the thing, like, how did we really keep track of age back then, right? But when you're talking about marrying a 6-year-old and then having sex with a 9-year-old, and then this 9-year-old girl is also described as playing with dolls and playing on the swing set, and it sounds as though she's not very grown up. Maybe we don't know the exact age, but there are a pretty decent amount of records suggesting that she was definitely really young to a creepy extent. Like, I don't know how she could be 6 years old, but actually that was like 17 at the time or something. I mean, it seems as though even scholars generally agree that, yeah, she was like 6 years old when they got married.
Yes, she was married.
He also noted that I am an
most
ape
scholars
and I
agree
should
that
go
she
F
was
myself.
married when she was between 9 or 16.
No, she was married at the age of 6, and she didn't have sex with him until the age of 9.
Yeah, they didn't. The purpose wasn't about love when he married her when she was 6. It wasn't a purpose for love. The purpose.
So let's say that hypothetically then he did actually have sex with a 9-year-old girl, would you have an issue with that?
In today's time, yes, I would, but
if she was 9 years old the same way that 9-year-olds are today, would you have an issue with that?
Yes.
Okay.
I would.
Okay.
So the age of 9 were considered adult. They were treated like adult and had responsibilities and privileges like adulthood.
Okay, I just, again, like, we know how the human brain develops, so even if they had social expectations placed on them, they were still a child. So it's hard for me to wrap my mind around how in some ancient society it would have actually been okay to have sex with a 9-year-old girl. That's tough for me, a tough bullet to bite. And I see people in chat saying like, "Oh, well, life expectancy was shorter back then." Yeah, life expectancy was shorter, but people also lived well into their 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s. So it's not like you had to have sex with children in order to keep the species alive or something. My main problem is that, like, I mean, even when you came on here, your first thing was, we don't really know her age. I have a tough time with a god who's apparently giving his holy words to somebody who may or may not be a pedophile. Why is it so ambiguous? Why is it so vague? Why did God not make it clear as day as, here's how old this person was, this is what this means, the end? Why is it like, well, some people say she was a child, so maybe it's child rape, but maybe it's not? Like, shouldn't this be something that's not really a debate if we're talking about God and his inspired word?
Considered as an adult, they didn't have these advancements and the technology to know when someone is an adult. Anyone who hits puberty is an adult.
Yeah, so that means that according to the Quran or in Islamic times, it would have been okay to have sex with like a 7-year-old girl if she had her period, right? Like
Yes,
it's
because
wrong no
in the
matter what.
19th,
Like, sure,
like
maybe they didn't have the technology to know, but you should probably recognize that, hey, this is somebody who's really young and maybe doesn't even have the physical strength to adequately consent or fight somebody off if they didn't consent. I feel like there are other ways that you can look around and recognize that that's wrong besides just like a brain scan. I mean, at times people used to think it was okay to have slavery. We didn't have the technology then to show that actually black people were equal to white people in the sense of whether or not they're human. But like, you could still tell that enslaving other people who seem to have goals and dreams and desires of their own is probably not the right thing to do. I feel like if you're with a child who doesn't really have the capacity to consent, if she's still really young playing with dolls, then it's kind of tough for me to bite that bullet, you know?
16 or 18. Like in most places today, in the 19th century, age of consent in the US was 10.
Yeah, and but what that was bad, right? Like
Yes,
the
but
fact that the U.S. once
now
had the
it's
age
bad,
of
but
consent
it
being at the age of
wasn't
10 is
bad.
bad.
Yeah, it wasn't bad at the time, but now it is bad.
Wait, so are you this? I feel like this goes the same direction every time I have this conversation. Are you yourself a Muslim? I'm not going to start shitting on you if you are.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so do you believe in relative morality or do you believe in objective morality? That morality exists regardless of human interpretation?
Um, I believe in both of them.
Okay. So there are some morals that you view as being objective then and others that are relative. I mean, I would be kind of on board with that as well. I think there are probably, well, I don't believe in objective morals, but there are some far more universally recognized morals. The thing is, though, is that if let's say stealing is wrong, okay? If stealing is wrong, then even if you live in a society in which stealing is the norm, stealing is still wrong. So if God said stealing is bad, then stealing is bad regardless of whether or not it's normal in society. The same thing should apply, or does apply in this case, to child rape. People didn't like develop faster back then. We had roughly the same type of development. In fact, a lot of people back then who were extremely malnourished or facing disease would actually hit puberty and begin menstruating later on in life, not earlier. So I fail to see how, even if it was okay at the time, like in the culture, it was normalized. How is that? How does that make it okay?
What was your last point? I didn't really hear it.
My last point was, if you are a Muslim, like if you're religious yourself and you believe that God has said something is wrong, then that means that thing is wrong, regardless of what humans say. So if God says it is bad to steal, but you live in a society in which stealing is actually okay, that doesn't mean stealing is now okay, because God has already said stealing is bad. Same thing as with child rape. It's bad to rape children. Even if you're in a society in which it's the norm to rape children, it's still bad to rape children. You get what
Actually,
I'm...
with this point.
Because you said it wasn't bad back then. I don't know
Yes.
how it can be not bad back then.
Yeah, but our morality changes over time.
So you do believe in relative morality more so than objective morality? Because I thought that Allah
Yes, it's actually
has
not
said some
metaphysical.
things are bad, some things are good, and doesn't that doesn't change based on whether or not humans think it's good or bad, I thought.
And because we need to interpret things based on our time.
Mm, I mean, I would be more I would be more inclined to go with that route, but I feel as though that's incredibly contradictory for religion because I always was under the interpretation that if you believe that morality comes from God, that morality would have to then be objective. It couldn't be subjective based on humans.
Yes, I agree actually with this point too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so like so then if it's bad regardless of whether or not it was okay in a society or not, right?
Yes, I consider it bad in this today's society.
So okay, I got that, but why was it not bad then?
They didn't have the knowledge. They didn't have an age of consent. They didn't know all of this stuff.
Okay, I get that, but again, I feel like though I honestly feel like even if they didn't have all that technology, which obviously I know they didn't, but even if they didn't, it's like how hard is it to see that a 9-year-old is still a child? How hard is it to look around and see that here's a girl who has just begun having her period, is still playing with dolls, and is playing with her friends on the playground? Like, this is generally probably somebody who might not really have the capacity to consent adequately. I mean, I get it that maybe they were ignorant to the fact that it was wrong. You can maybe make that argument. But again, being ignorant to the fact that it's wrong doesn't mean that it's just not wrong, because it would be wrong regardless.
So, can you give me where does it say that she played with dolls and she was swinging and playing?
Sure, I'll pull it up. It's somewhere on my notes here. You're gonna have to give me a sec. So, I mean, I just Googled it, Quran versus Aisha marriage. And somebody, I guess, tweeted this, the verse from Sunan Nasi 3378, volume 4, book 26, hadith 3380. And it says, quote, "The messenger of Allah married me when I was 6 years old and consummated the marriage with me when I was 9, and I used to play with dolls." That's the first thing it says.
So, I don't really. Is this an authentic one?
Yes.
The authentic hadith?
Yes, this is an authentic hadith.
Well, I don't really know about this, so I need to look it up then.
Okay. Yeah, just check it out. I mean, there are
So
other articles here
yes,
trying to make arguments too.
I
Okay, well, hey man, I appreciate you coming on here. Keep looking stuff up, okay? The first step here is the fact that you're willing to look this up and talk about disagreements and whatnot, and that's honestly very commendable. So I wish you the best, and yeah, if you ever want to come back on and talk some more, then let's do it.
okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.